on these programs. We'd like to start this morning with Ambassador Wallace, who is the ambassador to the United Nations. He has an extensive career as an outstanding attorney, was in the Attorney General's office in Jamaica, and has been engaged in many United Nations projects, seeking to help others with his expertise, and he's here to welcome us today. Ambassador Wallace.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Morris, Executive Director of the State University of New York, University of the West Indies Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to be here to represent the government of Jamaica at this special launch of the SUNY UWI Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development. And I hope that the fact that I'm here in the middle of General Assembly's high-level week demonstrates and signals the importance that we place on the collaboration under this program, as it is aimed at unearthing solutions to specific problems that are constraining the achievement of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. This special launch aptly coincides with the 79th session of the UN General Assembly. And the theme of this year's session is leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations. This is significant because it is through mechanisms like the CLSD that we will support the global efforts to achieve the SDGs. And we know that the Pact for the Future and its two annexes, the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on Future Generations, were just adopted on Sunday by the General Assembly. And it is important for us to recognize the role that the Caribbean, through Jamaica in this instance, has played in co-facilitating the process that led to the Declaration on Future Generations. This is now a part of our legacy, and it is something that I am personally very proud of, having led that process, and it's something that we should embrace as the Caribbean and give life to going forward. The government of Jamaica is acutely aware of the power of partnerships, and I must at this juncture just pause to recognize Dr. Joyce El Ali, President of NAJASO. It is through NAJASO that this collaboration was born, and through the steady support that it has continued to blossom. So thank you, Dr. El Ali, to you and your team. Initiatives like these underscore the immense value of the support of the Jamaican diaspora. As the government seeks to strengthen the partnership through the SUNY UWI Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development, we have formed a new task force through the Embassy of Jamaica that will include representatives of the government of the United States, the National Association of Jamaican and Supporting Organizations, the University of the West Indies, key business partners, and other community members. This task force will serve to engage all the key stakeholders to ensure that the necessary policy and funding support are in place to sustain the activities of the center. We've already begun the necessary outreach and aim to have an inaugural meeting in November. As I recognize Vice Chancellor Beckles, I congratulate the University of the West Indies on its new International School for Development Justice, which is the UWI's international business school dedicated exclusively to supporting the UN's SDGs. This is indeed a pioneering achievement, which will forever be attributed to the Caribbean. We are certain that this school will accelerate training for the next and future generation of academics, entrepreneurs, and public officials, educating and empowering them as current and future activists and leaders within the framework of the 17 UN SDGs. We are planting the right seeds, and I look forward to the fruits being born from our collective efforts. The government is thankful for these strategic alliances and remains committed to the transformative potential of this initiative. I thank you.
Thanks so much, Ambassador Wallace. What I wanted to do now was just run through a very quick presentation about the center, talk a little bit about what's been happening and what we're planning on. So there is quite a bit of history to this center. There were a couple of levels of involvement when it was first formulated. It was at the highest level, sort of the Board of Trustees with Carl McCall and Vice Chancellor. And that was almost 10 years ago now. When that was started, the SUNY Global Health Institute was invited to jump in and begin to organize some of the public health issues related to what the center was going to address. At that time, chikungunya was going on, and infectious diseases and viruses were in the news every day. So that was in 2017. And then you can see in 2023, UWI announced the International School for Development Justice. And now we're here kind of relaunching the Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development because COVID had a big impact on slowing things down. So now we're kind of bringing it back and bringing it into alignment with some other new programs that have been developed. Some of the things we're doing are developing a 5-year plan. So this is what we're thinking about through 2029. I won't go through all of these. I will say that there's been a transition where the initial center was on the SUNY side based in SUNY Central in Albany. That has transitioned now to the University at Buffalo. And it's kind of being administered and coordinated through the UB Center for Integrated Global Biomedical Sciences, which is a program that I direct in Buffalo. The UE Central remains the Caribbean hub for the center. And then we'll talk a little bit about the new School for Development Justice. Also, the initial SUNY Global Health Institute participation in the center grew into the SUNY UWI Health Research Consortium, which is now an active group, multiple campuses at SUNY, multiple campuses at UWI, funding from NIH, all the good things that we like to see going. And we're going to use that as kind of an example. And as you can see, other areas like climate change, alternative energy, innovative agriculture, now have become woven into the discussion about global health. So it's really not just global health or public health on its own anymore, but it's how these different areas come together to impact global health. Within the consortium, the UWI and SUNY Schools of Management and Business have taken leadership roles, as you'll hear about with the new international school. But there's already online training. UWI business students have been to Buffalo. Buffalo business students have been to Jamaica. And then last but not least, you could see the academic business collaborations that we really need to catalyze these new programs. And there is a Montego Bay Western Campus, which we are hoping will be the home to the UWI Global Health Institute. And we have a model that we're building in Zimbabwe the same way, public-private partnerships. And the minute you deal with the private partnerships side of it, you're dealing with sustainable development and economic development. So it all fits together. This is just a slide showing you some of the pieces. I have I'll just call it the CLSD, so I don't have to keep repeating it. You can see it there in the center. And in the upper left, you can see the SUNY UWI Health Research Consortium. On the right side, the International School for Development Justice. And then I had picked the Institute for Climate Smart and Resilient Development at UWI. There are actually multiple institutes at UWI that will fit into this diagram as well. And really what we're trying to say is that there's already ongoing activities. They're just separate. And so what we're hoping to do is have the center become the hub for integrating these things, making everything much more efficient, and really addressing some of the needs that funding agencies are asking for. We have a new board of directors that is currently being put together. And the very exciting thing to me, having been working in capacity building programs for 3 to 4 decades now, I can't quite say 4 decades, so I say 3 to 4 decades. But all of the types of capacity building programs that we've been working on should transition into sustainable development. And that's the challenge in many low and middle income countries. That's where the business partnerships come in and the relationship with government ministries so that everybody's kind of thinking in the same direction. That's where that new task force that Ambassador Marks is helping us put together fits in. We'll come back to that a little bit later. So just some quick lofty goals. We'd like to continue to nurture faculty collaborations across the SUNY system and across the UWI system. They'll have a focus. The faculty will mentor the master candidates in the UWI International School for Development Justice. There will also be a parallel master's program in the center that will have joint collaboration of the faculties. And of course, like any good group, we'll be seeking funding. And what we hope is that this unique coordination and collaboration will make funders sit up and say, well, yes, of course we want to fund this. This is something very good. It'll be done quickly and it'll lead to positive outcomes. And very recently, something Vice Chancellor will talk about is that in this collaboration now will be the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is based at Columbia University. And so now these different programs that we're all working separately will all be working together, trying to achieve this common goal. This is my personal vision of linking things, linking education and research to sustainable development. We're very used to trying to get grants and publish your findings and things like that. And we're not so comfortable transitioning that into a plan for sustainable development. That's where the groups that work out of the United Nations will fit very well with this new collaboration. And as you can see in the lower left here, we have undergraduates, postgraduate students, postdoctoral trainees, and community workforce. So all of these can fit very nicely into what we're planning and be able to work on achieving sustainable development goals. We have local projects like this going on in Buffalo because the US really needs to work on its sustainable development goals as well. So really, it's not just about global, it's about local and global, creating new models and then being able to transfer them to other countries so that those countries can adapt it and everybody's then working together. So to me, it's all a continuum. And I'll finish up a couple more slides. On the right side here, you can see what we're really trying to do. SUNY and UWI CLSD mentors. Then you have the trainees that are saying, I want to get a master's degree. Hopefully some will want to get a doctoral degree. There will be a series of remote courses. And then there will be a capstone or thesis project. And you can see there at the bottom that brings in global partners. So students that are registering from other countries will be able to bring in mentors from their ministries, from their universities, and together with SUNY and UWI faculty, help these students finish their master's or eventually a PhD. And the idea being country-specific progress. So what eventually will happen is a global training program, so to speak, with country-specific training to achieve the sustainable development goals in the priority list for those countries. That's also a lofty goal, but we think we can accomplish that. Okay, so I'm just going to skip ahead now. I'll just take one slide here, and then we won't necessarily have to come back to it later. What Ambassador Wallace was talking about was this Jamaica Government Regional Acceleration Task Force for CLSD. So what this means in my jargon is, instead of having multiple meetings with many people for individual projects, this task force will be able to come together once a month and deal with the priorities for the CLSD so that it can move forward quickly. That's not usually what occurs. And so that's why we're trying something new, because we do sense some urgency to this. And you can see the priority areas there in terms of Jamaica SDG Research and Development Infrastructure Program, Jamaica Health Research and SDG funding initiatives, semi-annual SDG business collaborations, quarterly SDG meetings with Government of Jamaica ministers, semi-annual SDG meetings with U.S. government officials, so that U.S. funding agencies can know exactly what the priorities are for Jamaica and other countries in the Caribbean. So hopefully this will work. I'm kind of a idealist, so I like to think people can come together and have new approaches. That's what we're trying to do there. So I'm going to stop there, and hopefully that was a good brief update on the center. And now I'm going to introduce Vice Chancellor Beckles to talk about the International School for Development Justice.
Thank you very much, Professor Morse. And thank you for being a champion and advocate for this partnership between the State University of New York and the University of the West Indies. I wish to thank also Chancellor John King of SUNY for giving this partnership his blessing and his support. I recognize, of course, Ambassador Wallace representing Her Excellency Audrey Marks, who's Jamaica's ambassador here, and all of my colleagues from the UWI. I recognize Anne-Marie Grant, who is our pillar of strength here in New York, and her team, and all of my colleagues across. We used to say the UWI system, but now we call it the UWIverse, because as you know, UWI is now global and everywhere. Today, we are focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals. We are focusing on the significance of these global objectives for human development. And as we convene here in the Global Center of SUNY here in Manhattan, the leaders of the world are committing themselves in the United Nations to another decade of significant investment in the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for global economic and social development. This is a wonderful time for universities everywhere. Universities were involved in the conception, the advocacy around the Sustainable Development Goals, and we invested very heavily in assisting the United Nations in having those goals approved and implemented. I was invited over 10 years ago when Secretary General Ban Ki-moon invited me to participate in an advisory committee on these Sustainable Development Goals, and I took that as a mark of respect to the University of the West Indies, that had long been involved in championing these development objectives and the discourse around equitable economic and social development. But no university can do this alone. No single institution can do this alone. This is the time for universities now to be involved in deep, meaningful, and authentic partnerships. All of these goals, the role of the university, we are called upon now more than ever to roll up our sleeves and become activists around these goals. And we can only do this on the basis of authentic partnerships for teaching and learning and research and critically advocacy. Both the State University of New York and the University of the West Indies have been activists in respect of these sustainable development goals. SUNY's commitment is well known. The UWI, the University of the West Indies, all of our 5 campuses scattered across the archipelago, we have been activists on these matters. In fact, I take great pride in congratulating my colleagues at the university for 50 years of detailed research around the issue of climate change. We have been a pioneer, if not the pioneer, in climate change studies for decades. We were among the first whistleblowers. We were talking about rising sea levels, rising sea temperatures, the destruction of coral reefs, the erratic movement of fish. We have been talking about these matters for 50 years and researching these matters. And now we have an opportunity to put that research before the world. And for that, we have received commendation. This morning, we are also reflecting on the revised partnership between SUNY and the University of the West Indies, built around sustaining our deep commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. And we respect the fact that the Buffalo campus has put up its hand and said, yes, we want to be the activist partner of the University of the West Indies. And Professor Morse is here representing that raising of a hand. You know, you could be in a forum and you can be speaking theoretically and you can be speaking with all of the philosophical flair that exists, but someone has to put up their hand and say, yes, we are going to do this. And this is what Buffalo has done. And this is what Professor Morse is now leading. And so we have a center, a joint center, the SUNY UWI Center for Leadership and Sustainable Development, because the SDGs do require leadership, and universities have a responsibility at this time to lead. The University of the West Indies has chosen to deepen its commitment, to deepen its leadership around the SDGs. And so we have established a new and exciting global school, a graduate school dedicated exclusively to the SDGs. We're probably the only university in the world that has a global school dedicated exclusively to the SDGs. Teaching on the SDGs, researching the SDGs, and providing technical and professional training to all of those governments and grassroots organizations and the private sector with an interest in the SDGs. We are going to be offering in this International School for Development, Justice, And note the title because, yes, we are a global school. Yes, we are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. But in that title is the concept of justice. Because what we need is development justice. This is a school that will bridge the development discourse between the global north and the global south to ensure that developed nations and developing nations can share a common policy framework, can be activists around the specific objectives of these goals, whether they are climate change, public health, food security, digital technology, whatever are those objectives. We hope in this project to engage in that North-South dialogue around the issue of development with inclusion and development with equity. And so the International School for Development Justice is a school that is committed to these objectives. We are going to be offering online master's programs, online master's programs to the world on the SDGs. As you know, there are 17 of these SDGs, and the United Nations is engaged in conversations about how to restructure the framing of these goals going forward. But the subject matter of each goal will be clearly validated. And our intention is to provide that learning culture to enable the world to acquire the knowledge and the skills in order to commit even more deeply to the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the flagship programs in this menu will be the joint master's program, joint between SUNY and UWI, jointly conceived and jointly taught on the issue of leadership for sustainable development. I reiterate the importance of leadership and sustainable development thinking and action. And so SUNY and UWI will be offering this jointly taught program on leadership for sustainable development. This is going to be a very critical part of the objective of what we now call the acronym, the ISDJ. And so SUNY will be, or will continue to be, our leading partner in the area of public health, on the area of global health. And all of us experienced in recent years how this pandemic had affected the world so unevenly. We saw how countries in the developing South were struggling to receive vaccines, to develop their own technology, to construct their own vaccines. We saw the distribution. We saw the impact of the virus upon the disproportionate impact upon the poor and the marginalized. We saw all of that, and we were able to see clearly how a virus had held up a mirror to the world. Look at your division. Look at your inequity. Look at how citizens in the world faced with an existential threat or were struggling in order to create a sense of equity and fairness. And this is the role that the SUNY UWI partnership will address, because we see it as an objective to be pursued. And so I am honored to be here at the SUNY Global Center to speak about this partnership, to speak about the critical and vital relationship between the SUNY and the UWI, and to consolidate this partnership. Now, I once referred to this partnership metaphorically as symbolic of a dance between an elephant and an ant. You know, SUNY has 500,000 students. We have 50,000. SUNY has over 50 campuses, and we have just 5 campuses. And so the elephant and the ant are dancing to reggae music. The elephant and the ant are dancing to calypso. And what the dance signifies is that size is not the critical issue. It's the beauty of partnership. It's the beauty of movement, and it's the beauty of the celebration of humanity. And so the elephant and the ant are at it again. And it was 10 years ago when we got involved in the constitutional construction of this joint center that Jeffrey Sachs was here in this very room when we launched this joint project. And now we are in a position also to thank Professor Jeffrey Sachs for coming to the support of this partnership and coming to give his leadership and the role he plays within the United Nations as the director for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the SDSN, which he leads from his position down the street at Columbia University. And Professor Sachs, you and your colleagues, we thank you for your leadership around the issues of justice for sustainable development. And you have been an inspiration to many people around the world in the search for equity and justice in sustainable and development. And we also thank you for agreeing, like with Professor Morse, to be an honorary distinguished fellow of the UWI Institute for Development Justice. Because this is about activism. This is about rolling up sleeves and getting work done in the communities and the countries, all the countries of the world that have committed to the Sustainable Development Goals are involved in the monitoring of their progress. Each country will be required to report on the state of their outcomes in respect of these goals. So there's going to be a lot of monitoring to be done. There's going to be a lot of measurements to be done. And countries that are falling behind will need to be encouraged and facilitated and getting up to date with their register on the SDGs. And we are here to assist this process. So this institute, this joint project, and this global school are here to be partnering with all of our governments, all of our community organizations, and the private sector in their commitments to these goals. Now, I would wish to end, therefore, by indicating to potential students all over the world, if you wish to strengthen your professional development and sustainable development issues, if you wish to pursue a career in the area of the SDGs and wish to be certified as a professional in that community, or if you just have an interest in how humanity is shaping up for the rest of this century, these are programs that are designed to meet your specific needs. So thank you, Prof. Morse, for hosting us here this morning, for allowing our two universities to say to the world that we are partnering for a good cause. That is how to assist the world in moving forward with development, with inclusion, and with justice. So thank you, Prof. Morse. Thank all of you colleagues who are here physically with us this morning, and all of our participants in the global world who are with us, not only virtually, but in good spirit. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chancellor Beckles. We will conclude our program now. We were going to have another session related to the task force, but I think we're going to save that for another date when Ambassador Marks is able to come and speak. We would like to thank everyone for joining us today. We're so excited about these initiatives and the impact that they will have on people around the world. And we're looking for everyone to raise their hand and want to be involved as well. And we will look forward to coming together again soon. And we hope to use this venue on a regular basis so that each year when the United Nations is meeting, we can fill this room with people who can then talk about what they're doing, how they've used these programs to advance SDGs in their countries, and hopefully bring the world a bit closer together. So thanks everyone for coming. We can get everybody to take a photo.